welcome to Collaboratory, the show where Mike Morris improvises an animatic with a little help from our audience, and we learn about the craft of storyboarding along the way. If you're joining us live today, we are looking for prompts. Mike, what are the prompts that we're looking for?
Well, we're looking for three things. We're looking for characters, setting, and conflict. So generally, we do what, like 2 characters or so. We've done more before, but that tends to get a little long. So generally about 2 characters, and we need a setting for them to be in and a conflict between them, or a conflict between them or between them and their environment, or some sort of conflict. It doesn't matter if it's man versus nature, man versus man, or man versus technology.
So feel free to jump in with your suggestions. Whatever you type might show up on screen. And to give our viewers some inspiration, in our most recent episode, we had 2 competing natural disasters that were foiling each other's plans to destroy a family's home. And I found that really entertaining. Mike, while we wait for suggestions to come in, how did you enjoy Wacom's animation dance party at Lightbox Expo?
Oh, it was a pleasure to put together. I was the executive producer on that, and that's why I have this cool background. And it was really amazing to see all the different artists that joined in, all the different artists that wanted to be a part of it. I had a small crew, and we did some animation ourselves to the sort of the intro lead up to the actual dance party itself, where we had over 100 submissions of dance cycles from all over North America. So that was really, really cool to be a part of. And it's an event that we've done a couple times now at Lightbox. And I'm hoping that it becomes sort of a staple of that show. That would be awesome.
Yeah, so this was the second year, right? I remember there was one in 2019 and one this year.
Yeah, there was one in 2019.
It's kind of cool to see like a scene composited with animation contributed by different artists, because you sort of see like one 3D character in one corner, and you see 2D characters that are also sort of dancing in the area when you have the video afterwards. I remember in the first year there was like one sort of like a drawing of a kid with like a hat down, looking embarrassed as everybody else was dancing.
Yeah, that was a cycle done by Laura Frankie, who was the producer for this year's Animation Dance Party. So we had people from Animation Dance Party and from Cartoon Crunch, 2 shows that I've helmed, working on this particular show, or this event rather. So we had a few of the Cartoon Crunchers come on, and so we had Annie and Brittany and Daniel and Leanne, amongst others. And we had some returning veterans to Animation Dance Party. We had Vinod Krishnan, who was our BG guy, or background guy before. So yeah, it was a great time, and it was a lot of work, but I think it really paid off.
That sounds really fun. So we got some suggestions. The first one that we got is gargoyles and pigeons. And I think there's a really obvious conflict between those two.
Yeah, it's all the poop.
It is all the poop. Another potential thing would be dance party as a theme.
Possibly. That takes a lot of drawing, though. I'm not sure we have time for that.
Yeah, it's always fun when you get a script that says, and then they all break into dance.
Yep. Or there's
provides a lot of direction right there. Giant stadium full of fans.
That's always fun, because you want to be either the person that jumps up to the forefront or keeps a low profile, so somebody else gets that scene. So pigeons and gargoyles, okay. And the conflict, let's see if there's any conflict that the chat has besides the pigeons poop on the gargoyles.
Can you give us a conflict for pigeons and gargoyles that is not the obvious conflict? We also got ants versus a raindrop. So we're throwing in more characters, but I think we really like the gargoyle as gargoyles and pigeons as two characters. I mean, both are very fun to draw. Gargoyles because they have detail, and pigeons just because of those big pigeon eyes.
Yeah. So we need a setting too. We need a good setting because it could be a more gothic setting in like you know, what was the heyday of gargoyle creation? It's like 1400s or something like that.
Okay, yeah. So going not like a New York City style, pigeons, gargoyles. We're talking about 1400s, sort of Baroque church type of pigeon gargoyle conflict.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a New York City thing, or it could be like what you said, more of a Baroque era.
Okay, here's one concept if we're going for a New York one. So Cartoon Rabbit is suggesting fighting for food, street food, and Dead Bones Brook is suggesting Transylvania as a setting.
Ooh, Transylvania is a setting. That's interesting. So we have a gargoyle and a pigeon competing for who can raid the street vendor the best.
I like it.
or competing for the scraps left from a street vendor. Yeah, that seems pretty interesting.
Or maybe a pigeon trying to be scary, trying to like scare a street vendor for food and getting tips from a gargoyle.
No, I like competition better. I think okay. pigeons versus gargoyles is a pretty good conflict. Yeah, I think that could be a pretty fun one.
One more suggestion from the audience. The street vendor is very clearly Dracula.
Yeah, so they have to be a little bit more diplomatic in how they approach this. If the street vendor is Dracula, then that's going to change things quite significantly. All right, so let's get into it then. So Transylvania, what do we have? We have
I read Dracula in college and I remember there being lots of cliffs and precipices and castles.
Yeah.
Lengthy descriptions of precipices and castles.
So like we could even do like the old school signs, like road signs. Like going into they have like this sort of a old looking post, and then this one doesn't really matter, so it's going to be broken against this here.
Okay, we've got a detail about the food cart. Instead of hot dogs, it would be blood sausage.
Ooh, yeah, that makes sense. Blood sausage for sale. If you've ever done a temp scratch voice, it's actually quite fun.
I feel like bad Dracula is something that is a very easy voice to do. Blah blah.
Well, didn't you ever see?
Do not say blah blah blah.
Yeah, you got to go with what's it? Hotel Transylvania on that. I do not say blah 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 blah. I'm not sure if that's how you spell it. Is that how you spell Transylvania?
Let's see. Let's have a close look.
I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put half of Barovia here too on the other side. Like
perfect. Yeah.
Barovia is that way. Transylvania is this way. Barovia is that way. Yeah. And mists. Yes, we do need mists. And then some sort of like forest-y area. And then a town with, of course, the castle on the hill, right? You got to have the castle on the hill. I mean, that's, you know, that's the place.
That's the whole point.
That's the whole point. And it's some sort of tiered city situation. And then you have to have the oversized moon and clouds in front of it. You know, sometimes people tend to like put clouds behind the moon. You can't do that because clouds are an atmospheric
moon is
thing.
far away.
It's kind of in space. So it's generally not advised. And of course you need like, you know, briars and crazy things like that. This is a, you know, inhospitable place to be.
Yeah, well, it's also fun when you see like a crescent moon and there's stars inside the crescent. It's like, no, that's that's the shadow of the Earth.
Yeah, that's always funny. A friend of mine pointed that out. My friend Ben. He was just like, yeah, get rid of that. I was like, oh crap, I didn't realize it did that. We were talking art one time, and you saw a piece that I did that had the clouds behind the moon. And then of course we have a cloud behind here to help you know, with the silhouette of the castle. And then, you know, some more trees and you know, pointy, stickly looking trees. We don't have a lot of time to really flesh this out. We've learned this. But as long as we have something that's kind of in a good place. Another thing that we can do also is a little trick in Storyboard Pro for some a bit of perspective. We'll just use the perspective tool and give this a little bit of a more upshot sort of look to it.
Well, that puts everything into perspective.
Yeah, great. That was awesome. Are you sure you're not a dad yet? Because you're heading
we've definitely lost subscribers, so
you're heading that way, my friend. Just so you know. If the joke's already indication.
You were a judge for the animation dance party. Do you want to tell the viewers a bit more about what some of your favorite entries at this year's dance party were?
Oh, there were a lot of entries that I really enjoyed. There were some that really made me laugh hard. There was one in particular that made me laugh, done by a Xavier Green. That was a gelatinous cube that was dancing. But, you know, the problem with that was that if you didn't know what a gelatinous cube was, you were kind of lost on it. So
very specific reference.
Yeah, it's very specific reference. So it wasn't as universal, but I sure got a kick out of it. So thank you, Xavier Green. You are a hero, sir. A hero to all of us nerds out here who were, you know, have D&D on the brain constantly.
I do think that references to cube-shaped jelly-type monsters, non-copyright infringing, show up in series from time to time. I think I've seen them in Adventure Time and around other places.
Well, I mean, they're common in like games like Zelda and stuff too. You know, where you've got jellies and, you know, some of those little things that are like the more minor monsters. I remember in Adventure of Link, jellies were quite common. They were the sort of a, you know, base experience kind of monster that you could fight. So that it's not unheard of to have that, but I feel like
it is a very specific reference. I will agree with you there.
Yeah. So I think that for those who didn't understand the reference, it wasn't quite as successful, but I sure enjoyed it. I liked it quite significantly. In fact, I hope he puts it on Giphy because I would use it all the time. Okay, so here we have this Transylvania establishing shot. Let's get a new shot in there. We need a shot of Dracula the street vendor. So let's lay down a little bit of a ground plane here. I think this would be
hot dogs. Get your hot dogs.
Blood sausages. Blood sausages for sale. He's got like a little cart, and he's got a
freshly coagulated.
The sort of thing, like the big cartwheel, like it's been pulled by some poor beast for a while. And
now, is this a sort of like street vendor cart that has like a little umbrella over it too, or what were we thinking?
I imagine it would have an umbrella over it, unless the chat has something even better. What you got, chat?
I can hear typing.
And it's like written on in blood.
That's just branding. That's good branding.
And let's see. Let's get the light on for a second. Let's have.
Okay, one suggestion is a cobweb-themed umbrella, or maybe an umbrella with cobwebs coming out of it. So a little spooky. Yeah. Another one is balloons, which I think might be a little bit off theme, but there could be a clever way to duplicate balloons in Storyboard Pro using the vector tools.
I think
spiderweb it is.
I think spiderweb. I think spiderweb speaks a little bit more to character than balloons do. I mean, balloons. I
don't want the themes to be too discordant.
Well, I think balloons could work given like the character of Dracula being a little bit less frightening and more comedic. But there would have to be some sort of thing with it to really sell that idea that he's still a monster and still does terrible things. Like those balloons would have to be made of, I don't know, like somebody's small intestine or something, So I think we need to make this stuff a little bit bigger to get that, or at least put it in frame a little bit more. Maybe not bigger. Let's make it even smaller, because then we can go to a shot of pigeons and gargoyles just kind of looking down on this scene and being like, oh man, blood sausage, that sounds amazing. So let's get some good posing in here for the count.
I feel like it was going to be a vendor. You want to give him like a little bow tie, maybe a name tag. Hi, my name's Vlad.
Yeah, right. He's got a little fork he's serving up with. Let's see what else. Like the big oversized bow tie, you said?
Yeah, I think that's fun.
And I need to switch pens for something that can write better than the textured pen. There we go. And he's still got his like cape and the whole 9 yards.
Yes.
So it's just like, you know, blood and sausage for sales. And let's see, what should we've got this sort of cobblestone road, I imagine. Being in Transylvania.
Like a really rough hewn road.
Yeah, maybe some stuff in the streets. You know, what would be behind him? Maybe some sort of building or something.
I think like a complete wreck of a building might be.
Yeah, because this would be like, you know, town square ish, and just add a couple.
Cheerful vampire, completely like wrecked village.
Yeah, so let's then I think we can do a really cool shot. Something that I'm thinking of is, you know, we can do a pan, so we can have like you know, buildings and things, and have like, you know, people peering through like shutters and stuff and being like, oh crap, what's going on, you know, and then pan up to where that we have the gargoyles and the pigeons sitting, or the gargoyles are up here and maybe the pigeons are on like a neighboring roof and they're both like eyeing stuff, you know. But I think having a little bit of fear juxtaposed in with the comedy, I think makes it even more funny.
Get a little bit of roller coaster going.
Yeah. Let's see. The gargoyles would probably have to hang out on something like the church or one of those sorts of places. So not having the time to properly address the architectural concerns. We'll just do a flat-topped roof and then maybe like a small belfry. Because we do want to get some silhouette value in these gargoyles, right?
Yeah, so simple building, I think, would make it easier to highlight them.
So, like, we have this building in the foreground with, you know, somebody peering through, and maybe we'll even put like, you know,
a curtain close,
a passerby, you know, some old lady that's, you know, and she just takes off, and then you see like, you know, things closing and people like closing up their shutters and, you know, all that sort of good stuff. That on a different layer so we can not have it conflict with other things. Cool. So she's here, and then we'll put like a cap or something on her. It's an older, poor lady. And then let's see, background. I think we could do a little bit more as far as some more homes that are just sort of scattered here and there, and you know, the windows and doors and such are getting slammed closed. And then we'll make a copy of, or we're going to duplicate that. I'm going to move this guy up here a little bit. Give me some space. All right, there we go. So we're going to make a duplicate of that. And then we're going to make old lady just rush off. Like, yeah! You know, she gets super scared.
As a storyboard artist, do you find that studying architecture either formally or just by looking at the environment around you is really helpful?
Oh, of course. As any sort of artist, you should be studying things constantly. You know, always be observing. You know, I've been reading bedtime stories to my children lately. You know, and we've gotten on to the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, and we're in a part where Holmes was chiding Watson for not observing his environment. Right, you can see stuff, but not observe it. Right, and because observing means that you are taking information about that thing, not just merely registering it visually. So be observant about your surroundings, be observant about people and their attitudes toward things and their mannerisms. I think in that way you can really get to entertainment value in things. You know, there's
I mean,
always
otherwise you don't notice the dog that doesn't bark.
sure, yeah. You never suspect the butterfly. You know, that's a Simpsons reference for those of you who haven't seen that. Because no one ever
the butterfly.
suspects
The butterfly.
Or there was a Treehouse of Horror where I think where he talks about no one ever suspects the butterfly.
I think he was talking about reincarnation with Lisa.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Because I think that was a fantasy aside. I don't think that was from Treehouse of Horror.
I think we
I
can
watched
even make
way
this,
too many Simpsons episodes.
I think we can even like make this a little bit more extreme.
Oh yeah.
After her initial reaction, you know. She has like just a couple of teeth.
I think showing characters afraid of something is an exercise that you don't see very often, and I think that it is a really interesting acting exercise.
Sure. Well, I mean, when you're setting up any kind of story, you're establishing a rhythm of something, right? You have to establish a setup, because if you don't set something up, you can't pay it off, right? So we have to set up and pay off, and set up and pay off, and set up and pay off, and that's how a lot of stories get told, is in those setups and payoffs. So, like when you are getting a story ready to go, you have to set up what sort of the rules of the environment are, right? Otherwise, if you try and pay off something you haven't set up, you're going to confuse your audience, and then they're out, and then you got to win them back again, which generally isn't something you want to have to do. Because I mean, how many times have you watched a movie and something happens in there that sort of comes out of left field, and you're just like, what is going on? I don't understand why this person's doing that, and then instantly you're out of the film, right? You're thinking about the filmmaking, and you're out of the suspension of disbelief. So I mean, when we're watching something,
you need to understand somebody. You need to have someone to root for.
Yeah, but you need to sort of establish the world that they're in, and then go from there. and make sure that you're, true enough to what you've set up so that it actually has an effect when it paid off. Like one of the things that I remember as being like a long-term setup and payoff was, sorry for those of you who haven't seen Avengers Endgame, but you've had time. So if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert right now. The whole thing with Thor's hammer and Captain America, they set that up in a whole different movie, right? But then it comes to fruition in Endgame, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, holy crap, that thing happened, and people were just like freaking out. I know I was, like, when that happened in the movie, because they set it up already. They had set that
several movies back.
Several movies back, yes, but people still remembered it. But that's the thing. It was a long game setup that had a really great payoff in the end. So we have like some people that are like right here, and some of them hiding and stuff, and this lady's like, run, and then everybody sort of as almost in unison like shuts their windows and doors and
slam.
Yeah.
We got a question in the chat about storyboarding. So in productions, how typical are boards done with color, or are they usually monochromatic?
Generally monochromatic, because most productions don't want to waste time on full color boards. I have done full color boards before. Me and a friend of mine, Mike Collins, had done a board together that was in full color, but that was for a live action project that was being pitched. So in that was sort of like a special situation, I feel like.
Yeah, I've also seen boards where if there are characters that have similar designs but different colors in the production, they'll give them outlines in different colors like orange, blue, and so on.
I find that the most common thing for that is like an opaquing color, like a light yellow or green or something like that, something representative of a color. Like when I was working on DuckTales, we had Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and sometimes they had, and in that show they weren't all the same like they had been.
They were given more differentiation in the reboot, of course.
Right. However, sometimes just as a speed thing, that we could we would have it where we would just color them in a certain color so we could avoid having to draw all the details. Because in boarding sometimes there just isn't time for that stuff. Okay, so now we need to a good shorthand is always nice to be able to maintain. Now I'm going to go to my timeline view here so I can work with some camera stuff. All right, so now I'm going to add a camera move here. So we're going to come up, we're going to pan up to gargoyles here, and we're just going to give a hint of this other side. Okay, so we have setup of Transylvania. I'm going to turn off that so you can see it. Transylvania.
Some organ music in the background. Do-do-do. Yeah.
We've got Dracula selling blood sausage. We got ladies going away, and then all the doors slam. And now we've panned up to the gargoyles. And then, so new shot. Cut in on the gargoyles. Whoops. Let's do just a small little background here. We have just the top of the thing, or the ridge that they're sitting on.
Steeple, turret, something. Yeah.
Yeah, just the ledge of the abbey or whatever the appropriate term is. Sorry, we're learned scholars here. Of course, we know all the terms of all the things.
All the architectures.
All the architectures that ever were architectures.
Buttresses.
No, buttresses are different, I think.
Right. Sconces. No.
No. No. Okay. So we have gargoyles, and we'll give them little gargoyle-y horns.
Mike, do you have a favorite gargoyle from fiction?
A favorite gargoyle from fiction? Probably Goliath from the actual Disney Gargoyle show.
Okay, all right. So going for gargoyles.
That's what comes to mind off the top of my head.
There was like a children's picture book that had a really greedy gargoyle that got its hand stuck in a jar of pickles, wasn't able to remove it because he's holding on to the pickles.
Oh yeah, that's a problem with gargoyles. They just don't want to let go of that stuff. So we've got these gargoyles in there. Avarice for blood sausage.
Very, very imp looking.
Well, I mean, gargoyles, their original purpose was to like ward off bad things, right? Like that's why people put them on the outside of buildings, to sort of be guardians. So that, and you know, they're fighting against pigeons, so we can't make them like all that intimidating, right?
So they look more like winged pugs almost.
Kind of like little bat people.
Yeah.
And then I think that what we need to do is be like, oh yeah, these he's at it again. He's got the blood sausages. Oh my gosh, I really want one. You know, so let's we'll give like a little bit of conversation between the two of them, and this guy looks at his friend, and I'm gonna again do the color swap trick, where you just change the color on something and then you go forward and draw right on top of what you had before. And this guy doesn't necessarily need to turn his whole head. You can just have an eye change. It's like, let's go down and get some, or something like that. You distract him, I'll go get the stuff. Yeah. But then we see we're going to do a bit of a swap, and then we can just use the power of vector drawing, which I often like to do. And we'll have him just sort of like see beyond. And then this one can turn his head now. And then we will do a new shot, see what they're looking at. And I think right now, for this shot, we need to go with probably a point of view shot. And we have the neighboring house right here, and we have maybe some other bits of house in the back, and you know, the eerie clouds.
So, Mike,
and then,
one decision I don't think we've made yet is how many pigeons are we talking about here?
Oh, I'm thinking like a lot of pigeons. I think they need to sort of like just start arriving, you know, in mass droves. Just kind of like, you know, like the Hitchcock's The Birds or something like that.
Yeah.
Just
and
a billion of them. And they're all,
you know, pigeons aren't really birds you associate with horror, right? Like even the sounds they make are just kind of like cute, you know, like a coo coo.
well, anything can be horrifying given the right context.
Right amount of them.
Right? You just have to show malicious intent, you know? And then, so we have one, and then let's split that. And then we'll have them just sort of like come up to here. And I'm going to get a bigger brush so I can just breeze through these a little bit easier. And then you put more and more and more. And they all just sort of keep coming, you know. These ones have come down and landed. This guy's come down and landed. And then I think either a flash zoom or maybe cutting back to the others. And we see them on their perch here. We've got the one in the front. The smaller. Let's give a little bit of depth to these characters by making one a little smaller than the other. We can sort of stage this guy a little dirty too, so he's not totally in frame, but we see, like, you know, him more in the foreground. Then we need to do some sort of like stuff in the background to sort of even out this composition. We still want to see that they're up high, so maybe some of these roofs and some trees and the stickliness of those trees. It's a technical term, stickliness.
Stickliness.
Yep.
You don't want like full lush trees in a horror series, right?
No,
you
you
want
want
these
stuff
sort of
that's like,
scraggly.
yeah, kind of decaying and falling apart. Then another thing that we can do is work our lighting as well, and you know, maybe take this guy here and, you know, put him in some shadow where he's not, you know, fully visible. Whoops. Let's get that one instead.
Okay, we got a comment in the chat. 300 pigeons, 2 gargoyles. It's the movie 300, but for blood sausage.
Nice. And then this guy maybe be a little bit more in the light. He's like, let's do this thing. Like this is like a long-standing rivalry.
It's sort of the scene where like the letterboxing comes in and like they sort of have a standoff, eyes sort of squint.
Sure. I think one of the things that we could probably do is just a
Yes.
and all his pigeon brethren.
The Legion.
Yeah, just around like they're a really tough gang or something, And then he just turns his eye. Sometimes when you are doing a turn like that and you want it to be a little bit more extreme, you can do the color trick like that, delete it, and then after you've sized it appropriately to itself, you can make it a little bit bigger and more extreme. He turns his eye on him. And then copy and paste, and then we have the I'm watching you sort of thing.
All right, we've got, I think, 10 minutes left, so why don't we go through and see what we have?
Okay. So let's go back to the first shot. Establishing Transylvania. We are seeing the castle on the hill and the little town that's in the outskirts of.
Can we zoom in a little bit just so we can get a bigger shot of it in frame?
I'll do you one better. I'll go to the camera view.
Yeah.
We got the camera mask on, so that'll work. Okay, and we could probably even put like a little drift in or something, or like a drift over. So let's drift over to the castle just a little bit. So we got this nice little shot of that. Blood sausage for sale. Slam. And then we've got two gargoyles up at the top, and blood sausage. He's got it again. Let's go get some. Wait. Huh? And they look, and there's as all the pigeons start to gather. So it's a fight they want. It's a fight they're gonna get. So Sam Riegel from Critical Role, the D&D stream, has metagaming
pigeons.
Metagaming pigeon. And so these are all metagaming pigeons. They're all after Dracula's blood sausage. So, yeah.
All right.
We've got it.
So, Mike, before we go, do you have any recommendations for other horror movies or animated horror movies that our viewers can watch?
I'm really not a huge fan of horror movies.
Maybe not horror movie. Maybe horror's wrong, but like monster movie genre stuff. I think we're talking about Hotel Transylvania earlier. That's a delightful movie.
I mean, there's a bunch from the 80s that are pretty funny. Oh man, you got me on the spot here. I don't know. I think that a lot of times I like to go back to classic literature. Actually, yesterday I was listening to on YouTube Christopher Lee reading Edgar Allan Poe, which was awesome because I mean you've got Saruman reading Edgar Allan Poe, and his Telltale Heart was freaking incredible. But
you want someone who can do like Haunted for that.
So I draw inspiration from that sort of stuff. I love like that kind of like mystery, and that's why we're reading Arthur Conan Doyle now. But there's so many sources, but I think that my key to anything that I watch that is sort of horror based, I think, is more along the lines of, is it suspenseful? Like Hitchcock movies, I think, are more in the line of what I would like in a horror movie.
Yeah. So from Hitchcock, the idea between like horror and suspense, or surprise and suspense, right? Where surprise is when you're sort of have these people sitting around a poker table and suddenly there's an explosion, whereas suspense is people sitting around a poker table and then you cut to a clock counting down on a bomb.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a classic storyboarding example of the bomb under the table, right? And there's two people sitting at a table. One realizes it, the other doesn't. Or you have one person sitting at a table and a person knows there's a bomb under there, but they can't like reach the other person, so they have to try and get their attention some other way. That's a really good storyboarding assignment. But yeah, in like horror genre stuff, I love more of the suspense rather than like gore thrillers, and things like that. There's always the Cthulhu type things as well, where I've been playing Darkest Dungeon, which has a lot of that sort of like madness idea involved in that, with seeing such horrible things that it drives you to the brink of madness. And I think that's along the lines of this in gothic horror types of stuff. So that's always interesting. But I mean, there's a wide world of genres out there as far as horror suspense thrillers. So do your exploring not only in movies but in books. I think that as filmmakers and as storyboard artists, if we only look at other movies, then we're doing ourselves a great disservice, because I feel like that will rob you more of your imagination than anything else, because you've seen it, right? You don't have to generate those ideas. You don't have to generate those thoughts. So turning more toward literary things where you're having to use your imagination to visualize it, like, I think that's better as far as...
And then you can show people things that they haven't seen before.
Yeah. But it also gets down to how you visualize things as opposed to how somebody else visualized it, right? Hayao Miyazaki was famous for saying that like he's concerned about the doom of the Japanese animation industry because it's full of otaku, people who are watching films and then making films based on the films that they've seen, not based on real life experience or their own ideas of how things should go. So I would say turn to sources that force you to use your imagination significantly more than watching films. Watching films is great. I think it gives you ideas, and it gives you ideas of what other people are doing in that space. But
okay, so aside from like read books, do you have any projects or topics that you'd like to draw our viewers' attention to? Maybe things that you've done recently, like Animation Dance Party.
Like Animation Dance Party, I was just going to say, I think it's going to be on YouTube before too much longer. I know we have the panel from Lightbox that you can watch, which has the film in it. I believe that it should be on YouTube, on Wacom's YouTube channel before too much longer, if it's not there already, just the film itself. But it was a joy to put together, and hopefully we're going to be able to do it again in concert with both you guys at Toon Boom and MSI and Wacom. So looking forward to that. And so get your tickets for Lightbox next year, because it's for Lightbox attendees.
All right. And thank you to everyone who joined us today for Collaboratory. This Thursday, we have a special presentation of Harmony 21's gaming features. Harry Ravello Manatsoa will be showing off rigs that use Harmony's gaming bones, skins for swapping character details like props, glasses, hair, and clothing, and the new SDK for importing character animation from Harmony directly into Unity. And if you're a fan of animated food, I know Mike just mentioned Miyazaki. Don't miss next Tuesday's live stream. We'll have interviews with 4 creators from our Ingredients of Animation shorts that you won't want to miss. So until next time.
See you, everybody.